Today we're beginning with Psalm 123. Again, 4 verses. Once again, one of these compact ones. Really a good, nice little vitamin for the morning. Unto thee I will lift up mine eyes, O thou that dwelleth in the heavens. Behold, as the eyes of the servants look to the hand of the masters, and as the eyes of the maid unto the hand of her mistress, so our eyes wait upon the Lord our God, until he has mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us, O Lord. Have mercy upon us, for we are exceedingly filled with contempt. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorning of those that are at ease, and with the contempt of the proud. You get the idea here that this is one of someone who's being treated by contempt, by proud people, by people that have things, and instead of them looking and taking revenge, they look to God. Have mercy upon us. Help us with this problem. Help us with how these people are treating us, these powerful people. So again, they're taking it not into their own hands, but they're taking it up to God. And he has been showing himself very good in these scriptures of being hands-on. We're going to see that. We saw that yesterday with David, when the fact that, remember when in 2 Samuel, where he went through the mulberry bushes, when God was told, when David's going after the Philistines, they were coming up the valley of Rephidim. First time God says, go get them. So David goes and get them. Second time they came up, David asked God again, and God's like, you don't, you wait, I'll go first. Then you follow me. You hang around in these mulberry bushes, and when you hear rustling in the bushes, attack. And of course, that's what they did. God is the captain of the Lord's host. He can be the captain of your soul. He can be the captain of your house. He can be this captain, but you have to call out to him and find out what he's doing. Understand his heart. That's the problem. We understand his mind. We understand the theology. We understand what he did, what he does. The heart of the matter. He says, that he would give people, that worship him in spirit and in truth. When you're in tune into the spirit of something, you get the heart of it. If I go to a football game and I get into the football game, I've gotten into the heart of the football game, the spirit of the game. Actors have to get into the spirit of the scene. So get into the spirit with God on things, not just what he will do. He's not the force. That's something we're going to see in a minute with the Ark of the Covenant, that he's not a force that can be used for good or bad. That's something that Hollywood has taken with the Ark of the Covenant with the Indiana Jones movie, which I really like. That it's just this neutral thing that'll work for the Israelites or it'll work for the Nazis. It's just a force. Well, that's not how this works. Speaking of 2 Samuel, we did 4 and 5 yesterday. And again, chapter 5 ends with that story of Saul has died, David has become king. Abner went to make peace to establish David not just as the king of Judah, but the king of Israel. He's murdered by Joab. David laments him. But the men come together. They make David king. David goes and captures a place and calls it the city of David, and he captures Jerusalem. Remember, like I said, Jerusalem at this point was not a big player of anything. It's hardly mentioned at all. You have other places mentioned, not Jerusalem. So he takes Jerusalem, and then he calls it the city of David. And then he goes and he defeats the Philistines who were coming up this valley. Remember, God told him to attack, and then God said, wait, I'll attack, and you follow me. In chapter 6, he gathers the chosen men of Israel. Now, listen, look at the wording there, not just of Judah, of Israel. 30,000. He rose and went with the people, and he went to gather up the Ark of the Covenant. Remember, we said the Ark of the Covenant, it was built in Sinai. It came up along the side, on the side of Moab. It came across to the Jordan. Then it wound up in Shiloh. Then Phinehas and Hophni took it into battle, erroneously, and it got captured by the Philistines, went down to Gath and Ascalon, and they sent it away because of the hemorrhoids and the problems and the rats. And they sent it to Kirjath. They sent it in an oxen cart. It went to Beth Shemesh, where they looked into it and shouldn't have. The men of Kirjath Jearim came and took it, but they took it to a guy named Abinadab, and his house was in Gibnah, which is near Kirjath Jearim. So that's where Abinadab was living. So that's where the ark has been sitting all this time that all this has been going on with. Why didn't Saul go get the ark? Once again, a man that was not after God's heart. He should have gotten the ark almost immediately with Samuel, or approached Samuel about getting the ark. He totally misses what God is wanting to do with Israel. He doesn't see the big picture of what it's like to really be king. It's not just about exploits and fighting for power. It's about establishing yourself. He never attempted to really establish himself. He wanted the power of God, not the establishing of God. But here's David now. He's just going to get the power of God and the establishing of God. He's been anointed. So he goes up with his men, and there's this great big, this is a whole bunch of men. It's not just 4 or 5 guys. It said he took 30,000 men and arose and went with all the people to bring back the ark of the God. Here's, thousands of people thronging along to go get this ark. And they take this ark and they're bringing it down. And it's on a cart. But as they're coming back, something bad happens. The cart starts to fall a little bit, and a guy named Uzziah puts his hand out to steady the Ark of the Covenant. But you're not supposed to touch it. It's holy. So God strikes Uzziah down, and David stops everything. There's been a breach. There's been a problem. There's been a sin before God. This is holy. You may not touch it. That's why it was put on long staves, and it was only carried by certain people in a certain way. And he actually probably shouldn't have been that close to the cart. Let them, stay away from the cart. Let the cart move. It'll be all right. But he thought it was going to fall. He reaches over to touch it, and he dies. David stops everything because he knows he's displeased. He knows God is displeased, and he's so afraid of God. How can the ark of the Lord come to me? This is a very dangerous thing. And again, not of itself. When you have something holy, you have to treat it with the utmost respect of the one who has made it holy. Even if you're David could have been killed by touching it. No one had that right. There has to be some high levels of respect for something that's holy. And so David's concerned about this, so he goes and puts it in the house of Obed-Edom, who's again a Gittite. And so he stops people. He's on his way to Jerusalem, and he stops and puts it in this house for a while to think things over. And while it sits there, that house gets blessed in a lot of different ways. Probably financially, there's a lot of calving, there's a lot of growth. Things seem to grow because of the holiness of God. But what he's seeing here, he's heard the stories most likely of what happened with the Philistines, with the Ark of the Covenant, and he doesn't want that happening here. But you see, again, like I said, this isn't the force. It's a neutral thing that can work for the Jews or the Nazis. When it's with the sinful people and there's no covenant, it's dangerous and deadly. When it's with the people of God, it flourishes and creates bounty, creates peace, creates goodness. So he sees what happens at the house of Obed-Edom. So he goes back to bring it now into his city, the city of David, Jerusalem. And so he goes and brings in the Arks of the Covenant. And there's a lot of dancing, by the way. Thousands of people dancing and singing and playing on the trumpets and with their timbers, and there's their drums and all of this. And people are dancing and they're feasting. And so that they bear the Ark of the Covenant 6 paces, and they fall and make an offering to God. There is offerings going on, burnt offerings and peace offerings and trespass offerings that are going to happen. David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, with the shout of trumpets. And the ark of the Lord came into the city of David. Michal looked through a window and saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. I think she thought that the king should have more decorum. The king should be lofty in a big robe and sitting up almost equal to God and wearing a crown, or being should be more honorable. But he had this linen tunic on, and just about that's all, dancing around, maybe his sandals on, dancing around the excitement of being around the Ark of the Covenant, that the Lord is back, that the Lord is in the city. So he's dancing around up and down, and all the people are feasting. And they brought the Ark of the Covenant and set it in his place in the midst of the tabernacle. So with joy, David had set up the tabernacle. Remember, we talked about how it was set up with the different types of lambs skins and badger skins, that the poles were set up a certain way. And there was consecrating. They would have slayed lambs and bulls and sprinkled the blood and all this stuff. That went through all of that Levitical stuff to set this up right. And they bring it in and set it in. And so they have the peace offerings and the trespass offerings, and he blesses the people. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, even as to women as to men, every one a cake of bread, a good fleece of flesh, and a flagon of wine, so that the people departed every one to the house. It wasn't just worship, okay, everybody go home. He also gave them wine, he gave them food, he gave them bread and meat, and he gave them flagon. He gave them a lot. He gave them not just, here's a cup. And this could have been tens of thousands of people, men and women. Here you go, this is for you. There's a bountifulness for this God. So we see, excuse me, so we see in this chapter how that there is a bountiful, and is that they came. It says David danced with all of his might, and he was girded with a linen ephod, just this linen thing. His wife despised him in her heart when she looked out the window. And David made this offering and gave it to the people and returned to bless his household, and Micah was there. And Micah came out to greet him. How glorious was the king of Israel today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovering himself. Now she's accusing him of dancing around with all of his might, that maybe private parts were seen, which I don't think that happens. I think she's exaggerating. But she's despising him, and that's the point of this. And he kind of, instead of defending himself, he goes, you know what, I'm going to double down. When I dance upon the Lord, I'll be even more vain. I'll be even more vile. I'm going to be more expressive. So he doubles down. He doesn't decide to say, oh no, I was doing this. He doesn't explain himself. He doubles down. It was before the Lord that chose me before thy father and before all his house to anoint me over rule over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore I will play before the Lord, and I will be yet more vile than thee, than thus, and be more base in mine own sight. And of the handmaids that thou hast spoken of them I shall be in honor. They know that he wasn't doing anything unforward. He wasn't being vile or rude or crude like that. But he was dancing with joy, leaping, just the whole excitement that the Lord is with his people. The Lord is in his city, that he is the king of Israel, not just of Judah. And Michal despised him in her heart, and she had no children until the day she died. God cursed her for cursing her husband. And we see in 7 real quick that God, that Nathan, the prophet Nathan, not his brother, this is a different guy, the prophet Nathan comes before David, because David was wanted to build himself a house. And it came to pass that when the king sat in his house, that the Lord had given him rest round about, and the king said to Nathan, see, now I dwell in a house of cedar, but now the ark of the God dwells in curtains. He's looking and seeing he's got a fine, strong cedar house, and God is living in a house of curtains. This shouldn't be. So Nathan says, go what's in your heart. But in that, go and do what's in your heart. But that night, God came to Nathan and said, no, don't let him do that. Tell David, shall you build me a house? Have I ever dwelt in a house? Have I ever said that I wanted a house? I brought you up out of Egypt, even to this day, and I have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle. You get the idea that he's talking about I came down and my feet touched the ground. I walked among the people. Now I know it might mean not just that he came down and walked, but his spirit came down and he was, just like you would look at someone walking with them, that his spirit was with the people in this sort of way, that it was like he walked with the people. Therefore thou sayest thus, the Lord God, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, and made you ruler, and I was with thee wherever you went, and have cut off thine enemies out of thy sight. More, I have anointed a place for Israel, and will plant them, and they will dwell in this place of the children, that neither the children of wickedness afflict them any more. He wants to build a safe place for the children of Israel. This is interesting because right after the Holocaust, that was one of the reasons for the Jews coming to the Holy Land in the 40s, was to create a safe place. And they knew that safe place was not just moving to Bolivia or taking over part of Austria or something like that. You go back to this Holy Land, the land that God gave to your fathers. And they came back and established this nation. And so he tells thee, and since that time I have commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused thee to rest from all these. Also the Lord telleth thee that he shall make thee a house. I'm going to make you a house. I'm going to make you a strong house. And so that's what he's going to do. He's not asking for a house for himself. His goal is to create strength for David and strength for Israel. That's his goal. He's not thinking, and here's the funny thing is, here's God really not thinking of himself in the situation. He's thinking of David and his beloved Israel. And in thy days will fulfill, they'll sleep with their fathers, and I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall procure out of thy bowels, and I will establish this kingdom. He will build a house for my name, and will establish the throne of this kingdom forever. So he tells him that he's going to have a son, or he already had that son, Solomon, that came from him, and the son will establish the house of God. And I will be a father, and he will be my son. There is a great promise. I'm not going to have your seed off there alone. Just like I was your father, I will be his father, and I will father over him. And I will chasten him, and with the rods of the children of men, but my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee, and thine house, and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee, for thy throne will be established forever, according to these words. That's what Nathan said. The word forever is cool there. Again, it's those small words we stop to look at, the word forever. You're going to be established forever. Maybe he's thinking, well, can I be established in my day, and maybe my son will have a day. This is going to go on forever. The implication here is Messiah, King, and the Messiah, King, will go. And this is connection to Messiah right here. So David prays. He's very humble about this. And when David, the king, sat before the Lord, who am I, O Lord God, and what is my house that he brought me? Is it such a small thing in the sight, O Lord, that thou hast spoken also to thy servant's house for a great while to come? Again, who am I, and who is my people? Who is my family that you've spoken, not just of now, but of things to come? And what can David say more unto thee, Lord God, thou knowest? For thy word's sake and according to thine heart hast thou done all these great things to make thy servant know them. Again, he's extolling God. He's very humble here. He could have been very prideful. You know, it was in pride that Saul wanted the kingdom. David takes the kingdom and establishes the kingdom, but he's very humble about it, at least through here. And so, therefore, thou art great, O God. There's none like thee, neither is there any God before thee, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And while one nation is on the earth is like these people, and what nation is like Israel, whose God is the Lord, who went to redeem his people himself, and to make himself a name. For thou hast confirmed thyself, Israel, to be thy people unto thee forever. And now, O Lord, the word that thou hast spoken concerning the servant and concerning his house, establish what you want to do. Do what you want to do here. Do what you want to do within this house. This is a very big thing that we agree with him. Sometimes we're passive with God. Whatever you want to do. No, whatever you were doing, I want to get involved with it. I want to put my strength behind it. We'll find that he will contact his friend Hiram and set up for his son to build the house. Set up everything that's needed. Set up the cedars and set up the silver. And set up the gold. And set up, all the things that Solomon's going to need to build this wonderful house. Get ready for set up for stonemasons and set up for all these different things, the wood cutting and all of this, and getting the wood in. He's going to set this up. He's going to get active. When he's not defending, he's preparing. It's when he's in the middle, just kicking back, that's where sin comes in. We either need to be defending or preparing. We need to be working with joy, because God is doing to establish by defending, and he's doing to build up by establishing. So here we see him putting his faith that he did against the Philistines for the work of God. And thou, O Lord of hosts of Israel, hast revealed to thy servant, saying, I will build thy house. Therefore hath thy servant found in his heart to pray this prayer unto thee. Therefore let it please thee to bless the house of the servant, that we may continue forever. So he goes back and uses God's words to God, and now he's establishing himself. So we're going to see him establish some military victories, and then he's going to move on. But he's going to establish this house, and he gets to be a part of the building of the house. So he's not excluded. So we got to see the heart of David here. And this is what God is looking for. He's just not looking for an understanding like Saul had, or a base understanding. scattershot. I'll just do a fast, or I'll just do something religious and God will be motivated. I'll just do it myself and God will be pleased. He's got his heart. He's lined up with God. And now he's moving forward. And that's what we should do. We should read our Bibles, find out what's good, doing, what God is doing, our God, and get beside him 100%. You know, following somebody is not walking directly behind them sometimes. It's walking beside them, but they're leading. That's what following is. Following is two men walking side by side, but one man's leading you. If he turns to the right, you turn with him. If he turns to the left, but you're still side by side. Jesus wants friends that walk side by side, know what he's doing. If he picks up, you know why he picked it up. If he's moving something, you know why he's moving it. You just know intuitively because you know him. That's what's most important, not just to know our theology, but that we know him. Thank you.